The stars beyond the viewport shimmered in cold silence, endless points of light in a void too vast to comprehend. In the observation deck of the research vessel Aurelia, Lyra Xenn sat alone, her tentacle-like appendages curled nervously around her knees. She had been part of the Intergalactic Union's Scientific Council for decades, yet here, drifting among these stars, she felt smaller than she ever had, an unworthy fragment of a galaxy that valued efficiency over empathy. "Lyra," came the voice, soft but firm. A human voice. Captain Elias Ward stepped into the observation deck, hands clasped behind his back. "You're staring at the stars again. Thinking too much." Lyra flinched slightly. Humans always approached differently, directly, with warmth that was so alien it was almost painful. I am just considering the data," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. Elias stepped closer, leaning casually against the railing. "Lyra, you're more than your data. You know that, right?" She looked at him, her bioluminescent skin pulsing faintly in nervous patterns. I do not understand. I have made errors, big errors. I miscalculated the gravity projection for planet Trosin. Entire colonies were at risk because of me. They called me reckless." Elias tilted his head, studying her. "Mistakes don't define you. You're not your failures. And honestly, even the most brilliant minds make mistakes. That's the point of being alive, to learn and improve." Lyra felt a twinge in her chest, an unfamiliar sensation. She had spent years being told she was insufficient, too slow to adapt, too empathetic for the Union's ruthless precision. But Elias, he looked at her not with judgment, but with something else. Something dangerous and foreign. Hope. Weeks earlier, the Aurelia had been dispatched to the edge of the Zarex Nebula, a sector riddled with uncharted wormholes and unstable energy pockets. The Union wanted data, but what they received instead was chaos. Lyra had been leading the mission, analyzing the structural stability of the wormholes for potential travel routes. She had calculated everything based on known physics, but she hadn't accounted for the subtle gravitational fluctuations caused by the nebula's dark matter pockets. The result, a near-catastrophic collapse of the primary shuttle bay. The crew had survived thanks to human intuition and quick reflexes. Elias's own quick thinking had saved dozens of lives, but the Union officials had been less forgiving. Reports were filed. Disciplinary hearings had been scheduled. And Lyra, she had begun to believe she was worthless. It was in the quiet aftermath, when the Aurelia had drifted into a calm region of space, that Elias found her staring at the stars. "You know," he said gently, "I've watched you work, Lyra. And yeah, mistakes happen. But nobody else on the ship would have even recognized those gravitational fluctuations. You did. You just missed the timing. Big deal. You didn't fail. You almost saved everyone with what you did notice." Lyra looked away, blinking rapidly. But the Union isn't the universe," Elias interrupted, smiling faintly. "I am, and I see you." Over the next few days, Elias made it his mission to pull Lyra out of her shell. He introduced her to the human concept of shared storytelling, where individuals expressed not only achievements but fears, hopes, and failures without judgment. Lyra was hesitant at first. "I do not understand the purpose of such exposure." "It's not about purpose," Elias said. "It's about connection. Trust me, it's worth it." By the time the Aurelia reached the edge of the Nebula Rift, Lyra had started to share stories of her life, of her upbringing on the oceanic world of Allura, where intellect was prized over empathy and weakness of any kind was punished with isolation. She spoke of her first major scientific breakthrough, the praise, and the eventual fall from grace when one miscalculation caused an orbital probe to disintegrate. Every detail, Every confession was heavy, but each word seemed to lift an invisible weight from her. Elias listened, and every time he spoke, he reminded her of something humans did instinctively. They believed in potential beyond mistakes. "Your mind is remarkable, Lyra," he told her one evening as the nebula's light painted the observation deck in eerie green hues. "You have foresight that others can't even comprehend. And yes, sometimes that foresight comes with errors. But you are not defined by those errors. You're defined by what you do next." It was a simple phrase, yet it struck Lyra more profoundly than any union decree ever could. A month later, the Aurelia entered the heart of the Zarex Nebula, where energy readings spiked unpredictably. An uncharted wormhole, large, pulsating, dangerous, hung like a scar in the space-time continuum. The Union's mission was to stabilize it, but the previous attempts had failed. Lyra stood at the control console, sweat glistening on her skin. Her appendages shook as she manipulated the gravimetric stabilizers, recalibrating in real time. "If my calculations are correct, it should hold," she whispered, almost to herself. Elias leaned over her shoulder. "I trust you." Lyra blinked, shocked. "You trust me?" "I've never not trusted you," he said. "And right now, your instincts and..." Minutes stretched like hours. The wormhole pulsed violently, energy surging unpredictably, threatening to tear the Aurelia apart. Lyra's hands moved with precision, adjusting frequency outputs, modulating gravitational resonance. She could feel her heartbeat in her appendages. "Now!" Elias shouted. Lyra activated the stabilizers. Light flashed across the bridge as the wormhole shuddered, twisted, and then settled. The violent surges subsided. The wormhole remained intact, a stable corridor ready for safe exploration. The crew erupted in cheers. Lyra sank back into her seat, trembling, not from fear, but from disbelief. "You did it," Elias said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You actually did it. You saved this mission. You saved lives. And you believed in yourself enough to try." Lyra's bioluminescent skin glowed softly, the color of wonder and relief. I never thought I could," she whispered. "You could," Elias said simply. "You just needed someone to remind you." In the following weeks, the Aurelia returned to Union headquarters, the wormhole maps and scientific reports in hand. The Union was quick to praise the mission's success, but for Lyra, the real victory was not the accolades. It was the recognition of her own worth, the understanding that even a being who had been considered insufficient could make a profound difference. She and Elias often returned to the observation deck, sharing quiet moments among the stars. She found herself laughing more, speaking freely, and, most importantly, listening to the humans around her, not for their judgment, but for their sincerity. One evening, as they floated in the serene glow of distant suns, Lyra spoke softly. "Elias, you changed how I see myself. I thought I was nothing, but now I feel possible." He smiled, leaning back against the railing. "That's all it takes. Sometimes it just takes one human voice to remind you of what you already are. And Lyra, you are extraordinary." For the first time in decades, Lyra felt no fear of judgment, no weight of unworthiness. She felt alive, truly alive. And as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, she realized something fundamental about humanity. It was not just resilience or strength that made them remarkable. It was their ability to see value where others saw none, to lift others up simply because they believed it could be done. Lyra Xenn, once deemed worthless, now stood as proof that a single human voice could ignite hope, inspire courage, and change the course of an entire life. And in the quiet of the Aurelia, With the nebula swirling in luminous silence, she finally understood. Worth was never about perfection. It was about trying and being seen and believing that one could matter. Lyra Xenn stood on the observation deck, staring at the nebula stretching endlessly before her. For the first time in decades, she felt a calm she had never known. No fear, no self-doubt, only possibility. Elias stepped beside her, silent but steady, the human way of showing support without words. Lyra turned to him, her bioluminescent skin glowing softly in the nebula's light. "You know," she whispered, "I thought I was worth nothing until you spoke. Until someone believed in me when I could not believe in myself." Elias smiled. "You were always worth it. I just reminded you." A quiet smile curved Lyra's appendages. She realized that worth was not measured by perfection, accolades, or flawless calculations. It was measured by courage, perseverance, and the ability to keep trying even when failure seemed inevitable. For the first time, Lyra felt truly seen, not just by humans, but by herself. And in that recognition, she discovered her greatest strength: hope. The stars shimmered around them, infinite and unjudging, as the Elias sailed safely through the stabilized wormhole. And Lyra Xenn, once doubting her place in the galaxy, now knew she had a role that mattered. A role that could change lives. Because sometimes, all it takes is one human voice to ignite the spark of greatness within someone, and to remind a soul that they were never truly worthless. She breathed in the nebula's glow and whispered to herself, "I am possible. I am enough." And with that, she turned back to the stars, ready to step boldly into the universe that had always been waiting for her.